Today we're in Stroud, Gloucestershire to see Pat, the owner of the Hammett Guitar Company. We're talking about art and craft and adventure and some of the mental health challenges that come hand in hand with creativity and working for yourself. All right, Pat, good to see you, dude.
Hey James, nice to see you again.
Quite the setup you have here. It's amazing.
Yeah, welcome.
How did you get started making guitars?
I mean, music's always been really kind of prevalent in my life, but in terms of like making guitars, I guess when I was over at Bower Ashton, really good art faculty, they had like really good facilities, so like woodworking, metalwork, electronics, stuff like that. And my degree was actually in photography, but I was in all the other departments doing bits and bobs like making and designing and stuff like that. And I had old guitars that I'd work on, I'd repair, and old amplifiers and stuff like that. And I was just sort of constantly tinkering. And then when I finally graduated, I just I thought I'd give it a go at making my own guitar, basically. And I knew like kind of the fundamentals of how they were made. And the fundamentals of woodwork, but it was just putting it all together. It's taken me a long time to get to this point. And I wonder if way back when, if my business, if it had been clearer, I could have had some investment, bought all the things I need and set myself up, and I might be here many years ago, but it's just not the way I operate. Really.
And like not the way that you learn as well, right?
Yeah, well,
got to go through these processes to learn stuff.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you thought you might have ended up doing before you got into this?
I think when we were kids, when we were hanging out as kids, I was interested in. I mean, I still am interested in like cars and more bikes now actually. But I think when we were hanging out, I wanted to do motorsport engineering. So like at school, all the my GCSEs and then the A levels, they were all geared towards going into some sort of engineering or motorsport thing. Those faculties at Bristol kind of gave me the space to make and design, and then it became quite clear to me that I was more of a maker than anything else. So,
I mean, all of those things that you said are very creative, right? There's like photography, even the design, and all the kind of more engineering side of it is all creation in some form.
Yeah.
Seems like a very common like theme of everything.
Yeah,
you're doing, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say this to other people about guitar making. I can make it. I've got a range of guitar models, and you can buy one, and I can make it, and I can make that model over and over and over. That's not what I find most exciting. What I enjoy the most is the design, like making the first one, because when you you refine all the shapes and the colors and the materials, and the idea comes to life, and that's what I find the most exciting thing. When I make a guitar that's not intended for someone, like when I'm making the prototype, if you like, there's no one in mind. So it's like it's unusual that everything will fit for someone's for that one person.
Yeah.
So I'm making the prototype for myself essentially, and then then you can exhibit what you can create.
Maybe we could have a look at some of your work. See.
Yeah, sure. So this, there was a period in my life when I was started to get really into sort of the older blues records, and then invariably you look at like modern musicians and what bands are still, that sort of music is still prevalent in their style, and you come across people like, especially for the old blues records, you come across people like Jack White, White Stripes, you come across Dan Auerbach or the Black Keys, and they play a lot of these these funky old American catalog guitars, which are kind of from the 50s and 60s. Back in the day, they were largely affordable, economical instruments. Vintage guitars now can be like extraordinarily expensive, but these guitars you can still buy them, and they're not too overpriced. They still function, and they don't have the same playability as modern guitars, but they're still like full of vibe, lots of character. Jack White and Dan Auerbach play like a couple of different brands. One is called K and one is called Harmony. And Harmony made these guitars in the 50s and 60s that were like quite wacky, but really, really fun. So this is this was that model that he played. You know, it has my own spin on it. Like I have an F hole. This one's actually a non-cutaway, so normally there's a cutaway here, and then partnered with one of my necks, which has my own profile, my own spec, my own headstock shape, and you know, it becomes my model of my own instrument. But you know, the essence is still the same. It's what inspired me to start making guitars, and I still make it today. And it's actually one of the most popular models as well. When someone commissions a guitar from me, some of the first questions I have for them are like, "What music do you listen to? What bands do you like?" And you can work out what they're really after in an instrument from that, because it's more than like the same things that I was as well. You know. Yeah.
I wonder how much of like the process is, you know, it's a very physical and hands-on creative process. How much of that feels like are you pouring out of yourself into that?
Yeah, it's a fair amount. Making a guitar is hundreds of different little processes that make that final thing. And I think, and I'm constantly improving them, finding like better ways, being like more efficient ways of creating a guitar. So I think it's rare that I tend to make my guitars in batches. So I'll make 5 bodies at once or 5 necks at once, and then you have a client that will say, I want this color scheme and then this trim, and then you can sort of go from there. That's the way I organize to make it work for me. But I think I'm constantly refining my processes, I guess what I'm trying to say. So it's a constant learning curve for me.
Yeah.
So each one I make, I learn something new. I learn a better way of making one. And that's, you know, people ask me, is it hard to let them go? And it's like, it's not for that reason. It's not, because the next one is going to be better.
Yeah. We've spoken before quite a bit about mental health, and, you know, speaking about working by yourself for quite a lot of the time. How do you find that? And does that have an impact in your ability to create?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's hard to stay motivated, especially when you have there's lulls in your mental health, or, you know, there's low points. And you know, life's constantly throwing you curveballs. So I think it can be difficult to stay motivated, especially when your work is quite solo like this. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be able to fall back on other lines of like work or employment, or work with friends, or those have kept me sort of afloat in different ways. But, yeah.
I find that the process can be a blessing and a curse sometimes, right? Where it's like, sometimes you want to get your head into something. I suppose there's a lot of opportunity to really get focused if you need to take your mind off of things.
Yeah.
And you can use this as an outlet as much as sometimes it can be a weight.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, when I've had like bouts of sort of poor mental health or depression, I find it actually quite impossible to work by myself. You know, it's standing at this bench was like in confusion about forgetting how to do. I'd be like, I don't know how to remember how to do this again. Like, how do I do this? And I have to go back to my process book and reread the steps and the things I've done. Yeah, when I suffer with depression, I have complete like tunnel vision and fogged mind. So it can be really, really hard. Yeah.
Has that been quite a regular occurrence?
Yeah, it has. It's also become clearer how to manage that as well, and how to manage. I think when I was younger, I wasn't quite so aware of, you know, mental health. I think it's become, you know, it's really at the surface now. A lot of people's conversation, which is a great thing, and how to sort of what works for them and how to tackle it. But I think I've always sort of suffered in different ways with mental health, and I'm better now at managing it. The further I've sort of gone down that road of sort of self-development, self-awareness, there are points where I'm more confused about how to manage it. You know, it's like the more aware I am, the also more confusing it's become at times. So it's definitely a process. I think it's a journey.
A bit about what I know from your past. You know, you have always been on such amazing adventures that I've always been incredibly jealous of. You know, I remember one in particular telling me about road trip you did across America where you were jumping on trains and all sorts of stuff.
It was a massive cornerstone for me, in my life. It was really life-changing journey. It was with a friend. We were both kind of we were both heartbroken actually, and
That's how they all start.
yeah. And he spent a lot of time in San Francisco, and he used to go train hopping for adventures. And America is a wonderful place for adventure, especially the big outdoors, that sort of stuff. And we went away on this trip together, and he's like, "I'll take you train hopping." And we spent like a whole summer jumping on trains and not knowing where we were going, and riding freight trains and living rough and sleeping under bridges.
I love that.
It was really wild, and it was so much fun. And I was asked about this the other day, and I was having to really dig into my memories, and remember it all. I've got a journal about the whole process, the whole trip, and a huge map of the states, and kind of penciled in all the which ways we went. And we did north to south, east to west, the whole country, and we got ourselves in different trouble at different points, and met with amazing people at other points. And we finished in LA, and I went to this vintage guitar shop in Chinatown in LA, and this was the guitar that was hanging on the wall. It's called a Silvertone 1429. So anyway, I'd heard about these guitars, but I'd never actually seen one, and there was this that was hanging on the wall in that guitar shop, and that was like, it was quite a revelation for me, because I bought it and then took it home, and it was like, that was the end of the trip, and this was quite a significant way to finish it, really. And then this is really what sparked me making guitars after that. A couple summers ago, I took myself off solo cycling, and I did like the perimeter of Scotland, like wild camping. And I was on my bicycle, and I was like, I'd done this because when I went train hopping that summer, when we landed in New Orleans, we were there for a week, and then I was like, why don't we break this trip up with a cycle? And we bought these sort of old junk bikes in New Orleans and cycled to Nashville, which is a 1,000-mile cycle. And it took us 2 weeks, and we were wild camping all the way, but it didn't cross our minds. It was like, yeah, cool, let's do that. That sounds like a good thing to do. And we did that, and it was no problem. And then I had the same mentality going to Scotland, and my knee blew up. I couldn't cycle, and I was like, it was like plagued with problems.
Like 10 years different.
Yeah, just could do it, and like it wasn't a problem, Just get up. And I think that kind of, if it became clear the difference between now and then, and the same applies for my mental health as well. Like my brain was probably more robust back then. It cope with things like heartache a lot better. All I just needed was a nice adventure to deal with it. But now it takes a lot more work to keep me level.
These moments of heartbreak and these moments when we're struggling can end up being the catalyst that pushes us to go on and do something amazing as well, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the heartbreak, you wouldn't have gone on and done that thing.
Yeah, for sure. Everything happens. I mean, there's purpose. You can find purpose in anything. Really.
Well, I mean, you either do or you wallow in it, right? You either do something with that energy and use it to motivate you.
Yeah.
Or you let it consume you. It doesn't mean that you can't do both, right? You can be in a lot of pain and you can suffer.
Yeah.
But hopefully, you can still use it to put to use.
Yeah, it's kind of easy said than done though, and I hadn't actually until this year I hadn't experienced a depression like this year before. So like it's all very well saying you can turn it around and use this energy, but sometimes this year it was clear to me that sometimes it's just not possible. Like, really, I think that's kind of where that sort of leads into where we all need to help each other in these different scenarios. And I think I reached out to you at several points over the last year, and it's out of desperation, it's kind of out of feeling sort of like you can't help yourself, you can't call it, things that have kept me level in the years before, things like exercise, a little bit every day has always managed to lift my mood enough for me to especially in those low points, enough for me to to get through the day and like get my work done. Or those things weren't working this year, basically.
Yeah.
And I guess, and then this was my first experience of antidepressants, which I'd never taken before. And when you open up conversation about that with my friends, it's clear how many people have been on them and the range of experiences people had. But even that was still, I've always been quite open about it and my mental health to my friends. But all of a sudden, oh yeah, I had this and I had this, and I didn't know that it's kind of still unspoken about.
Yeah.
Because I had some friends that said don't take them. I spent 5 years on them, like stay away from them, try everything else, but I just couldn't find my way into a happier place. It was just nothing, and nothing was working. So I was like, well, I'll try these. And yeah, they did work, and I had a different experience, and it wasn't hard for me to stop taking them.
What was it like coming off antidepressants?
Well, I'd go through these, when I was on them, I'd go through these sort of periods of, I don't know, feeling like happier, but then, I don't know, basically my experience of antidepressants, I couldn't hold on to negative thoughts. So where's negativity? Yeah, it would come into my head and I'd ruminate. I wasn't capable of holding on to those thoughts, so they'd come into my head and just as quickly as they'd be gone.
Yeah. And,
that was like a massive relief for me because I wasn't dwelling, I wasn't panicking on just negativity. But the side effects of that were, well, one, my short-term memory was completely shot. I couldn't remember fucking anything. Conversations I had with people, it was quite embarrassing at times because people would be like, yeah, we talked about this, do you not remember? And I'd be like, I know I do, but like, feeling kind of embarrassed that I'd not been able to recall or recount sort of conversations, people's names, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, sort of having moments where I'd like, of clarity, where I think, oh wow, I feel actually pretty good. Like I feel like I'm so far away from depression of earlier in the year. And then I'd have like a panic inside and I'd be thinking, this isn't reality. Like this is an altered reality. I'm not really present. And then it would be gone. And then so coming off antidepressants, there was like a sort of a panic in me that I didn't know. I was unsure of how I would be.
Yeah.
But I did it in the right way. I came off very slowly.
Yeah.
To the point where I think I didn't renew my prescription, and then just...
For so many creative people, trying to have structure seems to be such a challenge without really putting the effort into giving yourself a routine and giving yourself a specific space.
Yeah.
Because your mind is looking for patterns and is so able to jump between things.
Yeah.
It can be very easy to just be untethered and be bouncing in between stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you have that regularity going on, it just gives you something to kind of hold on to and stabilise yourself. Stop your mind disappearing in unhelpful places.
Yeah, like routine. Routine has become really important for me. Like having some form of routine, even if it's a 15-minute run every day, just having something that keeps me, keeps me moving forward, if you like.